Just one thought on this idea of shared services. By the way, again, I want to say how much I admire the efforts to do this, particularly with fire. I was once involved in an effort with 5 suburbs in Cuyahoga County when I was on the faculty at Baldwin Wallace to try to consolidate 5 fire departments, and we failed miserably. I should say I failed miserably, so we needed you, Mayor Bell, at the time. I just want to put on the table that you can also think about your anchor institutions when you're thinking about shared services, right? So we tend to think about like governments, right? Municipalities sharing with, merging or sharing with each other. But your institutions, particularly universities and your larger community colleges, are enormously adept institutions, right? They've got comprehensive sets of public services that in many ways parallel what you have. We have, police and fire and buildings and grounds and HR, and then some other things that maybe are even easier to access, right? Our public university system in Ohio has one of the best broadband systems in the nation, probably, and we just won a big, federal stimulus grant to expand it. So you can be tapping into to the anchor institutions to look to them to help provide leadership in areas like that. Arts and culture is an obvious one, right? Many communities lean on, appropriately so, on the universities and colleges in their community to be hubs of arts and culture, even to the point of sharing facilities, right? Why isn't a university theater or a university or a local symphony hall also the home of the university's assets? And then finally, I think I didn't completely answer Lavea's question about how can you use anchor institutions in regional economic development. But while it's true in most communities, you still have to go municipality by municipality, Mayor, to get the tax incentives and the other things part of a package, and no doubt that's better when you regionalize those efforts. But again, your anchor institutions can be one-stop shopping in terms of the research, the access to talent, and the access to the various innovations that come out of universities. And certainly we find increasingly in economic development, whether it's the regional level or a state level, that one of the agenda items on a company's list when they're looking for where to locate or where to expand is access to research and innovation and access to workforce talent. And again, your anchor institutions should be expected to work together to provide regional solutions for those in those competitive situations.
I just wanted to actually kind of piggyback a little bit on what Mayor Bell was saying, because I think this was one of the key things that really came through to me and in the report we did joining forces at the Buckeye Institute is there's a lot of talk about the political leadership, and it's very evident that political willpower and the willingness to make some hard decisions is where you're going to find a lot of the ability to get it done. We sort of looked at it, the prism through which we looked at it as we were looking at this report was local taxation, finding ways to make things more competitive for wanting to draw businesses in. Ohio, I know there's a panel later today talks about state taxation, but Ohio is relatively speaking a high local level tax state, and that becomes a problem in terms of getting people to want to come there. So how do you keep those taxes low? There's a lot of reasons to think that there's prospects for those taxes to be rising over time, especially in the current environment. If consolidation is going to work, it's going to take tackling compensation issues. I assume that there was some, with the fire merger in Toledo, the bringing folks in and how you navigate the wage structure and things like that in the new combined entity was probably quite challenging, and it takes wrangling with that issue, because if you fail there, you may not see some of the things from that pure cost standpoint. Now, some of the regional aspects of economic development were a little bit outside the scope of what we were looking at, but definitely political leadership. It's just a no-brainer. It's got to be there, or it's not going to probably be nearly as successful as people think.
And sort of jumping off on that, Mayor Dean, obviously you weren't around at the inception of the MetroGov.
I was around.
You were around, but
I played the leading role in nursing.
But could you tell us, we're, I think all in Ohio here, looking at different models and sort of envious of what you've been able to do, with the Nashville-Davidson County region's been able to do. What was the trajectory of the region? Did it start all at once with everything consolidated, or were there sort of incremental steps along the way, to the extent that you can speak to that?
Yeah, there were some incremental steps. I mean, basically what happened was you had the referendum in '62, and then the government began on April 1st, 1963. And then you had all the current ordinances of the different towns and the county and the city of Nashville stayed in effect until it was all sort of worked through over a course of a couple of years. The schools actually were integrated together a little more slowly. That took about 2 years to get that done. But it happened relatively rapidly. So if it's '63 was the beginning of metropolitan government, it's well underway and really totally integrated probably by '65, '66. One of the things